Hello, stat students. We're going to go over some slope and y-intercept stuff in case you missed it from the last video. So looking at this problem down here, 3, 4, and 5 for this day 24 worksheet. First, the problem is talking about looking at prices of real estate, comparing it to the home size here. Okay, and the great thing about these problems are that the equation of the best fit line has the context already in it. So if we're thinking about what the y is, or the response variable, that's price, because it says price equals with a hat on top, and the price with the hat on top, it has the hat because we look here, the lines above the y in the equation mean predicted. This best fit line is not the actual, it's a prediction, right? It's a trend showing the trend and where the kind of the estimation of where the points kind of follow. So we have to put a hat on top of that price. And then we can give us the y-intercept and the slope there in the equation. So it's all there in the equation. So there's the y, there's the x, size being the context for our x. So in number 3, when we're asking about explaining slope, right? Explaining slope, we can first find the slope, and the slope being the number that's next to our x, right? Positive, so that's important. And now we can, so positive 0.061 is the slope. So now we can use the framework that we have to actually answer the question. So what's the framework that I'm giving you? And so I've given you these sentences before, and this is what you should be doing, is using this sentence here to answer number 3. So you can copy that and then fill in the blanks. And so what is it about this that we have to change? So in this problem set, we want to talk about for each additional x, and in this case our x is house size, right? And it's right there, it says size. So we say with each additional home size or house size, if you just said size, that would be fine because you can get that off the equation. The predicted, so just copying here, right? The only thing that changes is the x context. It's house size. The predicted y, and y is there in the equation, it's price, increases, and we say increases. So we've got the y, we say increases because it's a positive slope, right? So if we saw the equation or saw the graph, our slope would be positive, the line would be going up. And by how much? Well, it's by the slope. So there you have it. All right, so that's slope. The next question asks about predicting the price. What would we predict the price to be? What price would we get if we had a house that was 3,000 square feet? So what do I do for that? All I got to do, let's kind of get some of this other stuff out of the way. When I'm predicting a value and I'm given the x, so this is my x, all I got to do is plug that in and calculate. So I do 47.82 plus 0.061 times 3,000. And whatever you get there, you can plug in for your answer. I think it's like 200 something, 230.8 or something like that. Okay, that's your answer for number 4. The next thing that we want to pay attention to is y-intercept. Okay, and if we look down at the question, it could ask you 2 different questions. One, it could ask me to interpret it, like number 3 to ask to interpret slope or explain slope. Or it could ask, does it make sense to even interpret y-intercept? In this case, what does number 5 tell us? It says, does the y-intercept make sense? So this is a yes or no question, but we have to explain why. Okay, so don't just say yes or no. Let's get this stuff out of the way. And now let's talk about whether or not the y-intercept makes sense. So the first thing we're going to do is actually identify what the y-intercept is. So we already looked at slope. Y-intercept is the number that's by itself. Normally, in algebra, you have that last in the equation, but in stats, we write it first. So the y-intercept is 47.82. Okay. Does that number make sense when we talk about price? I mean, that could happen, probably, right? But what's the other piece to the y-intercept? Y-intercept happens when x equals what? Every single time x is supposed to equal 0 for the y-intercept. So what's our x? It's house size. So if we talk about this as the price, 47.82, that happens in the best fit line when the house size equals 0. Can you have a house that has 0 square feet? Like no space? Is that a house? No, it doesn't. So that's the way you want to think about this. Could x equaling 0 happen in real life? And in this case, x is house size. So if you can't have a house size that's 0, you're going to say no. And why? Because you can't have a house of size 0. So pay attention to that when you do these problems. Okay. So also pay attention to what they're asking. So you might get a problem that asks you to interpret the y-intercept, then you have to actually write out the sentence. Okay, so pay attention to that as well and use these frameworks here to help. So for number 9, when it says interpret y-intercept, use this right here for your framework. But if you see down here, does it make sense to interpret? That's when we say yes or no. All right. Take care.